create thousands of jobs in spin-offs, and of course provide Americans with safe and secure energy sources.
It was a bad day for the Liberal government in the House of Commons today. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. The Conservatives came into the House of Commons today and they introduced a motion demanding that the Liberal government repeal the emissions cap. What the Liberals call the emissions cap and what the Conservatives call the production cap. And I suppose from our standpoint, it amounts to the same thing, because the amount of emissions that are limited means the amount of production that can be accomplished. And as Canadians, we need to think about getting our own jobs up and running. And we need to realize that the federal government agrees that these laws are in the way, and that is going to be made clear by Pierre Poilievre. The Conservatives just tore them to shreds on this subject. However, before we get into it, I want to encourage all of you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials, and all of you that are listening that are subscribed, I thank you very much. Okay, let's get into this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Breaking news today, really good news for some, $8.5 billion. That's how much TC Energy just announced that it is investing in the energy sector. In fact, they said that they were betting big on the energy sector. Bad news is that's in the United States. $8.5 billion from a Canadian company invested in the United States instead of investing that here in Canada. That's $8.5 billion that will put people to work, pay royalties to state governments, create thousands of jobs in spin-offs, and of course provide Americans with safe and secure energy sources.
What a burn. You could hear Kevin Lamoureux, the secretary to the leader of the House, in the background going, "Oh, thank you, Mark Carney." And I couldn't agree with him more. Mark Carney is absolutely 100% responsible for the fact that, and the Liberal Party as a whole, I suppose, too, for the fact that this Canadian company has taken $8.5 billion that it has generated inside of Canada and invested it into the United States of America in the fossil fuel production, or the movement of fossil fuels. Nonetheless, it's a pipeline, it's moving oil. Much of that oil is probably going to have its origins in Alberta. Yet that $8.5 billion, all those jobs, all that infrastructure, all of the stuff that gets associated with that, well, that's now being invested in Donald Trump's United States of America. So I agree with Kevin Lamoureux. Good job, Mr. Carney.
It is completely impossible to build another pipeline as long as this cap stays in place. If this cap stays, no new pipelines will ever be built. It's increasingly clear that this Prime Minister has performed a complete bait and switch, saying something during the election, changing the rhetoric of the Liberal Party, but delivering the exact same policies as the previous Trudeau government. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines in the U.S. And again, these are Canadian companies with strong, proud histories of getting things built in Canada that have to go offshore into the United States to get new projects built.
These companies cannot invest in Canada because the Liberal government has put the production cap on all of the industry that they work in, or whether it be mining, and even if they didn't put the production cap, they still have a problem letting the ships come into the waters of northern British Columbia. There's a lot of laws that the federal government has imposed onto industry to stop them from developing their products. All the while, these companies are taking money they're generating in Canada and dropping it into the United States of America. Now, I covered that Enbridge, those 2 pipelines being built by Enbridge right now, and it's a massive investment, but it's moving oil from the Texas Basin to the east coast of the United States of America, which ultimately might end up making its way back into Quebec that way. The point that I'm making is that it's taking resources and sending it to the east coast, right? All of the while, the Liberal government is telling Canadians there's no market to send oil to the east coast. Doesn't add up.
The world is consuming more and more oil and gas. Pipelines are being built in other countries. In fact, it's ironic to note, and Canadians should never forget, that while this Prime Minister was cheering on Justin Trudeau, advising him to cancel Canadian energy projects, his company, Brookfield, was investing in other countries, to build pipelines in other countries, to develop other countries' natural resources. If Canada develops its own natural resources and we build pipelines here in Canada, well then Brookfield's investments in pipelines in other countries will be worth less because they'll face increased competition.
During the election for the Prime Minister, I did a report on Mark Carney's pipelines. Not only does Brookfield invest in other countries' pipelines, they own 100% of the Brazilian pipeline. They own 100% of the largest pipeline on the North American continent, and they own 100% of the 7 pipelines that combine to create one single line inside of Canada. This company is dumping all kinds of money into the oil production. They just don't seem to want anyone else to have the right to produce oil, which makes Mark Carney, at the very best, a hypocrite, and at the very worst, a person who's dabbling a little too much with his conflicts of interests. Either way, Canadians need to put the brakes on these upper crust people telling us that we're not allowed to have inexpensive houses, that we're not allowed to build them ourselves, and that we're not allowed to have good jobs that produce product that the world is demanding. Now, if Andrew Scheer delivering all of those facts and all of those truths wasn't enough to put the Liberal government back on their heels, if it wasn't enough to silence Kevin Lamoureux, a very difficult thing to do, I assure you, Pierre Poilievre came in and dealt the knockout blow.
We all agree that Canada has the most resources in the world. We all agree, at least Liberals and Conservatives agree, that the only reason we can't build pipelines to move those resources to tidewater is because of federal bureaucracy and federal laws. Now, you might ask, how can you say that the Liberals agree with that proposition? Well, the answer is that they passed C5, the foundation of which is that we need to go around all of the Liberal laws and bureaucracies in order to get things built. The law literally allows the Prime Minister, through the stroke of the pen, to go around all of the environmental, public safety laws and the associated bureaucracies, which means that he believes that those laws and bureaucracies are neither necessary to protect the environment nor possible if you want to get anything done. So we agree that the laws and the bureaucracy are the obstacle.
That's it. Give him a standing 8 count because it's all over. And of course, I had been saying that since the beginning, right? What Pierre Poilievre is saying is that by enacting C5, a bill which permits the federal government to start another bureaucracy which allows them to circumvent all of the laws that they've already written down, the C69, the no pipelines, C48, the no ships off the coast of British Columbia, no oil tankers, and the emissions cap or the productions cap, depending on which side of the aisle you want to come at it from. Again, like we've discussed, they're the same thing. By saying that Bill C5 allows the Liberal government to go around all of those bills, the Liberal government admits that all of those bills are in the way of getting production out of the ground. What they actually are saying, that Pierre Poilievre didn't point out, is that they just want absolute control of what Canadians can and cannot do. They just want control. They want everything to come to them. If this was a divorce and we went into court and we said the husband never let the wife touch any of her money, any of her resources, the judge and the wife's lawyer would be trying to call this abuse. They would be saying that this is the kind of psychological thing that means that she has the right to be divorcing this gentleman. And many of the people out there that are listening to my voice would agree. So what we have here is the Liberal government desperate to control what Canadians do, desperate to control how much productivity Canadians can have, desperate to control how we earn our money, where we earn our money, desperate to control what kind of business can be invested, desperate to control all of the provinces, enacting laws that stop the productivity of Canadians so that they have to beg the Liberal government for permission. And the Liberal government says, well, we'll look at it 5 at a time. All the resources this country has, all the development that it requires, all the young men under 35 that are desperate for a lifelong career that pays well. And Mark Carney says, oh, well, we'll just be looking at it 1 or 2 at a time once the office gets up and running sometime in the year 2027. This is an absurd idea. And I can't believe that people that support the Liberals don't see it for what it exactly is. And I can't believe that people that are supporting the Liberals don't realize that what they're actually supporting is a system that goes against its very self. They say that they need all these laws, and then they create this new bureaucracy, create this new legislation that says we can ignore all of those laws. Well, if you can ignore all of those laws, then simply repeal those laws, and Canadians can get down to business. Canadians can start to manufacture things. Canadians can start to have the money that allows for private industry to build houses, that allows for private industry to build pipelines, that allows for private industry to create, generate, invent, and all of the things that come along with that. All of the things that Canadians always hear on the news that's been done in America, or been done in this country, or been done in that country, where they have no limitations, not only on their development process, but by doing this, the Liberal government limits the creative process, right? You get creative, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I can do nothing about it because the Liberal government is standing in the way. And the Liberal government admits it, because they drafted Bill C-5, which at its core is designed to go around all of these bills that limit productivity, creativity, and investment in Canada. This Liberal government is the thing that's in the way. And I go back to what I've been saying since the very beginning. Get out of the way. Move aside. Okay, I'm going to wrap here. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.